Namor has been a staple DPS pick within the roster for quite a while now, and with his new buffs in Season 3, he has become even more lethal and worth picking up. My name is Paz, an Eternity player on the competitive ladder, and I'm going to tell you all of the things you need to know in order to pop off and carry on Namor. Before we get started with his abilities, understand that Namor is not just the character you play on DPS if you want to peel for divers like Black Panther, Magic, etc. When these characters are not present, he is also a menace on deep off angles with his turret and trident combos. Those who played support in Season 1 know what I'm talking about. It was honestly so annoying to deal with when it was done right. Scope out for whether or not the enemies have divers that need to be dealt with, and then once they are gone or the enemies aren't running them, look to take an off angle and be a menace in the backline. Let's get into his kit now, starting with his primary fire. Namor's primary fire, the Trident of Neptune, allows him to throw one trident projectile per 1.09 seconds that deals 75 damage to the body and 150 damage on a headshot. This means that you can now 2-tap headshot any squishy in the game, which is nice for consistency's sake. The tridents are not hit scan, so you're gonna have to lead your shots a little bit, but with the new buff in Season 3, they move much faster through the air, allowing you to be a lot more consistent. There's also a slight arc to the tridents when you throw them, but with the new speed buff, it is barely noticeable unless you were firing from super far away. I'm talking about like you're sniping from like Black Widow range type of thing. Because you were throwing projectiles too, you don't actually have any damage fall off. While you shouldn't be trying to snipe, to be honest, you also don't really need to be that close to the enemy to finish them off either. Mid-range is your best friend on Namor. What a lot of players don't know is that, kind of like Psylocke, Namor recharges his turret cooldown from each trident he hits on an enemy. This isn't all though, because the critical hits also send his turrets into a berserk state, gaining increased attack speed, further amplifying his damage. So first off, it is really important that you get at least one turret up as soon as you possibly can before you start poking at the enemies. In terms of where to place those turrets, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Second, once you put your turrets down, it is also important that you hit that headshot to send them into a berserk state to further amplify your damage. Luckily enough, it is really easy to hit headshots on the tanks that are right in your face when you were playing with your team or while you were peeling for dives. It also isn't that bad when you were off angling against unsuspecting supports, since they're barely even strafing against you. This isn't the only trident that Namor is yucking at enemies though. He has another trident, Wrath of the Seven Seas, that has some special properties to it. It still has the same projectile speed and feel to it, and it only deals 40 damage to the body on top of 60 splash damage. So if you do hit it directly, you are dealing 100 damage instead of 75 like the primary trident. The way they balance this is by making it so that the right click can't headshot, but you still can do a headshot right click combo to one-shot any 250 HP target. There is even more to the right click though. First, when the trident hits a target, all the turrets that Namor has placed perform an enhanced attack that deals 60 damage to the nearest hit enemy to the trident. So with 2 turrets down, you aren't really doing 100 damage. You are doing 220 burst damage, followed up by all of the damage the turrets are now going to do, since they're going to get sent into a berserk state, since you probably hit a headshot with that trident on the primary as well. You can combo both of the tridents too by animation canceling the primary trident with the alternate fire trident. With a headshot body shot combo and turrets down, you are doing 370 burst damage. Yeah, that's kind of insane, guys. There's even more to it though. You don't actually even have to hit the alternate fire either. The alternate fire trident deals spell field damage that will hit targets within a 3-meter spherical radius. This means you can aim at a target's feet, completely whiff, and still deal the full burst damage with your turrets and tridents. So honestly, if you can't aim, just get around the ballpark of where the target is, and you are probably going to win every single 1v1 duel you come across. So many players try to actually hit the right click because they don't know about the impact radius, including myself in the past, causing them to make things way harder than they need to be. When I figured this out, my jaw dropped to the floor. But that's enough talk about tridents. Let's talk about the real stars of the show, his turrets. What really makes Namor so special are his Monstro spawn turrets, otherwise known in-game by the ability name Aquatic Domain. Pressing E by default, Namor lightly tosses out a turret that attaches to any surface it makes contact with, where it will then fire at a single target within 40 meters of its line of sight. The way the turret behaves is that it will lock on to the first target that gets within 40 meters of it that it can see. Whenever the locked on target cuts line of sight from the turret will then move to the next target that is closest to it and will stay locked on to that target until that target leaves, is eliminated, or the turret is destroyed. There are 2 types of firing modes that turrets have. The first is its normal state, where the squids will shoot 2 projectiles per second, dealing 17 damage each, and the second is its enhanced or berserk state that is activated by hitting a headshot with the primary fire or simply hitting the right click. In this state, the squids will shoot 5 projectiles per second, dealing 11 damage each for 2 seconds before returning to their normal state. So the base state deals 34 damage per second, and the enraged state deals 55 damage per second. The turrets have damage fall off starting from 20 meters away, with the damage decreasing by half at 40 meters away. Each turret also has 100 health and will despawn if they are shot down or if the 8-second timer runs out. Namor can only have 2 turrets active at once, and that includes your team up squids too, so make sure you are getting the max value out of your squids by maximizing their uptime. Each turret has a cooldown of 12 seconds, but also remember that your primary fire reduces their cooldown by a pretty significant margin too, and if you hit 4 tridents, you're gonna have another turret up by the time one goes down from just being up for 8 seconds. There are 3 ways that you need to use the turrets. First, to poke at enemies as they walk in. Because you can get the cooldown on your turrets back by simply hitting your primary fire, it is fine to use the turrets early in the fight on hard to reach angles for the enemies so that you throw off their aim and also generate more ultimate charge for yourself. For lower level players, it can be a real hassle to deal with the turrets and then quickly go back to shooting other targets, especially since it's usually the Luna Snow's job to deal with these turrets anyways, at least at the higher levels. The second way you want to use the turrets is to scout or pressure out a dive. Ideally, when you know you are playing against a Black Panther or other diver, you can put a turret on a common flank angle to scout them out before they go for their engagement. This will make them weak before they go for their engagement, or at the very least, allow you to tell your supports where the divers are at so that you can get prepared for the incoming onslaught. It isn't the end of the world if you don't find them before they go in though. Having turrets down that are far away from the targets that they're actually diving will pressure them out while both supports heal each other, eventually getting them out of the fight or eliminating them on the spot if you hit your Trident combo right. It is very easy to fall asleep at the wheel with Namor though and troll your team against dive. Yes, he is very good at dealing with dive, but you still have to anticipate it and make sure you don't just put your squids too deep where they will lock on the wrong target, leaving your supports out to dry when the enemies know that you don't have any turrets in your pocket ready to go. The final use is to be aggressive on an off angle to pressure out or eliminate supports with your turrets. Because of your bubble that we'll talk about very soon, taking a quick off angle or flank sometimes is fine with your turrets to emerge from behind and take out supports. In fights where a tank dies early on your team, this can be the play that can make you turn a fight when everything looks lost. Just keep in mind that you don't want to do this if there are divers roaming around, since it's better to just get a pick from your own backline instead. The way I typically engage on the flank is I toss them on a wall right before I am visible as I am swinging, so the moment I use my primary trident, the turrets are firing with me. Then I can right click whomever makes the most sense based on their health, and if I can easily find at least 1 if not 2 with my play. It is very consistent, just know that your footsteps are very loud though, so good players will hear you coming and should be prepared. Namor is nothing without his turrets. It's his whole niche. Use them often and place them in locations that are out of the way to be difficult to shoot so that you can maximize your uptime and you'll be a menace, I guarantee it. Outside of his damaging abilities, Namor also has solid vertical mobility with his bubble, otherwise known as Blessing of the Deep. Every 20 seconds, Namor can send himself vertically 7 meters in a protective bubble for 3 seconds that makes him immune to all damage and crowd control. The bubble can be popped earlier by Namor if you choose to, and you can also hold space to glide down after if you need to reposition over longer ranges. Since you only get this ability once every 20 seconds, yes, 20 seconds, that's a very long time, good players will look to force this out of you before they go for their plays. Take Doctor Strange for example. If he sees that his Psylocke forces out your bubble after a 1v1, I'm sure he's going to be looking for his ultimate pretty soon so that he can stun you shortly thereafter. After doing the Phoenix Bronze GM, it's definitely the same thing. This doesn't mean you shouldn't use your bubble ever, just that you shouldn't really just rip it just to get to a high ground, and you should also be aware of the threats that are able to take you out after you use the bubble to get away. If the enemies don't have anything to take you out quickly, it's fine to use the bubble to get to high ground quickly occasionally, but don't make a habit of it. The nice part about Namor's kit is that once you go for your right click combo with the turrets on the flank, they will still shoot even though you're in the bubble form. So even if the Psylocke thinks she is pushing you on your off angle, know that she has a surprise waiting for her that is going to blow her up pretty dang quickly. Before we move on to his ultimate, we have to talk about the Gamma turret he gets when teaming up with the Hulk. Every 20 seconds, Namor can place down a Gamma Monstro that has 200 health instead of 100 with a 10-second duration. The range of the turret is the same as the normal turrets. The damage functions differently though. Instead of firing projectiles, the turret shoots a beam that deals 60 damage per second, which may sound low, but the damage actually ramps up to 90 damage per second after firing at a target consistently for 5 seconds. Compared to normal turrets, the Gamma turret does significantly more damage, but it isn't as much of a threat as people think. So long as you constantly break line of sight of it, it won't be doing as much damage. Many players don't know about this interaction though, so placing it on walls that dive tanks can't see that will lock onto them after they commit their movement abilities to your backline will melt them extremely quickly. Other than the properties we mentioned, the placement is still very similar to normal turrets. Just keep in mind that you can only have 2 turrets up at once, so typically I place this one second after a normal turret so that if I need to replace a turret placement, I am replacing a normal turret and not the more powerful Gamma turret. You usually are not committing this turret until later in the fight anyways, since you want the turret to lock on for as long as possible. Too early and the enemies will just shoot it down, and too late and it won't have enough time to ramp up and find value. Let's finally talk about Namor's ult though, the Horn of Proteus. Proteus? That's probably not what it is. I'm pretty sure it's Proteus. I don't know. Let's take a sip of water. Upon pressing the ultimate button, Namor will pull out a horn that will indicate the zone where he can throw a huge ass whale to slam his enemies after traveling for 1.5 seconds. All enemies within the initial casting zone have movement abilities disrupted too, making it easier to hit the ultimate. And if enemies want to try to go back in for whatever reason to that zone, they're also going to get their movement abilities halted. This stops things like magic portals, Luna's running, Phoenix ult, Cloak's fade ability, a ton of different stuff. The ultimate creates a cylindrical spell field with a height of 3 meters and 2 different circles indicating different damage zones. The inner circle that you see deals 500 damage, while the outer circle deals 180. This is why with a Luna or Rocket damage boost, his ultimate one-shots squishies with 250 HP, since it will then deal 252 damage in the outer circle. If you are playing Luna with him though, just make sure you damage boost Namor during the timing of the impact of the whale and not the cast. For Mantis, it is the opposite as far as I know. You damage boost the cast. I don't know why it is like that, but it is, so just keep that one in mind. Other ultimate combos that are really strong with this ability is with Groot, since it will line up the entire enemy team in your inner circle to completely annihilate them. No support ultimate will save them, not even Luna Snows. Just make sure that you cast the ultimate very quickly after the Groot pulls them in, since the whale takes a 1.5 seconds to land and the Groot ult only lasts around 3 seconds. Most of the time, the ultimate is used to pressure targets that rely on movement for a quick pick to turn a fight, or to simply split the enemies up for an easier fight in general. You can also look to cancel ultimates like Cloak and Dagger's ultimate when you have it at the end of their 4th dash. You just have to make sure that you trap targets at the start of the ult zone. Yes, the movement cooldown will still be blocked if they walk back into it, but they're probably just gonna walk away and not go into it if they have any brain cells. The reason you go for plays like this is because the ult only costs 3,100 to charge, which is pretty fast considering how much damage Namor is doing over time between his tridents and turrets. Rip your ultimate, turn fights, and continue carrying games. Now that we understand Namor's kit in its entirety, what counters him? For Vanguards, Emma can be pretty annoying to play against since the turrets you put down will allow her to retain her charge between fights if her and her team are smart about it. Not to mention, she also has a very favorable matchup into Hulk that is typically played with Namor. And it's not like Hulk is needed to make Namor work, but it definitely makes him a lot stronger. For DPS, those that have consistent damage that fire down main are going to cause issues for you on Namor. Some people might think that Phoenix counters Namor's turrets, but the breakpoints are actually in Namor's favor in my opinion and are the perfect nuisance to slow her down. She still has an easier time than most taking them out, even if it isn't her job to do so. As for supports, Luna Snow sucks to play Namor into because she can 2-burst your turrets super easily and get right back to doing what she was doing doing healing her team. Very rarely do Lunasnows realize though that it is their job to break the turret, so you might get away with bad placements for a while in ranked before you really get to those high elos. As for who Namor likes to play with, he does have the team up with the Hulk that makes him a very obvious choice. Groot is also a great pick to help combo ultimates with you, making you even more lethal consistently in fights. Your turrets also proc his wall passive around enemies pretty frequently, which is pretty sick because that damage is going to make a big difference. Bucky used to get paired a lot with Namor since he could hook targets into the turret's range and then slow them down with the old Luna turret, but Namor is a solid choice all around no matter what DPS you have. You just have to realize that Namor is more defensive than other DPS and struggles with raw damage output compared to other DPS like the Punisher. So if you were going against triple tank compositions, you probably want to make sure you're playing something else with Namor that isn't Spider-Man or BP. Luna Snow is an odd choice to pair with Namor since she's both good with Namor and against him. But to be honest, there are little things that scare me more than a Namor on the flank with a snowflake. While I haven't tried it myself yet, I could see Namor and Ultron being pretty good together on a flank with a drone almost like Hela is on the flank with Ultron, but the only problem I see is the possibility of too low of damage output. But if you're really farming on both Ultron and Namor, I mean, those squishies are gonna fall pretty quick. For the matchups portion of the guide, it is clear that Namor is solid into anything that wants to dive into your backline, but struggles to keep up with heavy poke characters like Hela. Playing Black Panther into Namor has got to be the most harrowing experience, and that feeling extends even to DPS like Star-Lord since it takes him so long to burn your turrets, and by the time he does, you just have more turrets to spare. The key to beating Namor is to just make the game simpler and fire down main with shields since he doesn't really break them super well. In these cases, he will then have to off-angle and flank, making his playstyle super predictable and easy to deal with. Now that we understand Namor's kit and the people he likes and doesn't like to have in the game with him, let's apply what we've learned to 3 different VODs. Today we are watching, again, none other than Energy that we've watched for I feel like almost every single DPS VOD. The way that Energy plays Namor is like no other. I think it's really interesting because he didn't pick Namor this game off the go. I think he actually started on either Psylocke or Hela, but then he switched to this because of what his team had. He has a Hulk now, so he's just going to make things happen. So again, he's just poking off the start. He has someone die. Dinks dies off the rip. But then immediately what he's going to go into is just making sure that the flanker is dealt with. He doesn't actually start on an off angle, which is something I feel like a lot of Namors just default to. It's either one or the other. There's like a step-by-step process that he continuously goes through. He first deals with the Psylocke, and then what he's going to do is take his angle over here on an off angle. The reason why this is his off angle that he knows he's going to go to is because he knows that the enemy team is going to push for the turrets. Then, because the flanker is dead, he's using his bubble for mobility because the only threat that can really get to him is Strange, is Hela, and none of those people are really going to be able to jump him. So then he's going to be able to use his bubble to opt in for a more aggressive angle like so, and now he's going to be able to put more pressure on the enemy team. He has more options to go from and just has overall more options. The other thing I wanted to say too that we'll talk a lot more about in the other 2 VODs is watch how he only uses 1 squid at a time unless he knows he's going to get the pick here. He has 2 squids that he can throw at this Hela right now, but there's no need because with a shot right click combo and that 160 damage burst on the Hela, you don't really need to commit all of your cooldowns into one unless you're really confident. So he's just going to keep waiting. His Loki's back now. Now he knows he can go for a big play because his team is back, and that's why he's putting 2 turrets down. I think they could have had a little bit of better placement so that they would be a little bit more active. But again, he's playing safe. He's playing in this high ground position to make sure that his backline, aka a lean on the Luna Snow, doesn't get one shot. And now he's going to be able to be a lot more aggressive if he wants. All in all, I do want to watch the rest of this fight because they do lose it, but I want to show you how, okay, he sees that the enemy team is walking left. He's going to go and make a hard commit right to possibly take someone out from behind if they disconnect from the Luna ult. It's a very high level lobby. They're going to be able to dodge that, but overall, it's just very interesting watching the best of the best play Namor, and we can learn a lot from this. All right, y'all, so for the next clip, it's not anything too flashy. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, but Namor is not a character that needs to be flashy all of the time. We're going through the step-by-step process. Is there someone that is flanking the backline? He hears the heals of Hela. He immediately puts 2 turrets down, puts 1 turret down to take the 1v1 aggressively on her, just to force her out. Even if he doesn't get the pick, it's totally fine. Then what's just going to happen here is he's going to be poking down main. Honestly, I feel like there is some alt feeding going on here, but there is a world where they do actually find a pick on the Luna here, so I'm not too mad about it. But what I want you guys to see is a look where energy is in comparison to the rest of his team. His mag goes down, so he needs to play a little bit safer. But remember, there is a Psylocke on the enemy team, and he knows that the Psylocke is flanking right here. So the moment he hears her go into invis, that's when he's going to commit his turrets here, which I think is really smart, and that's what makes a good Namor player. You just heard the invis there. He's going to throw the turret down, immediately right click, and even though the pick is not found, the engagement is dead for Psylocke, and the value that he can now get from just sitting in main is going to be a lot more prevalent. And then again, he knows, okay, this is about the time that this Psylocke's going to have invis again. He thinks that, okay, there's a possibility that the Psy is going to flank deep. And honestly, from his position, I would kind of agree with him here. I would assume that the Psylocke's going to flank deep if I just forced her out that early. She would have a little bit of time to go this deep, possibly find an ult on the backline that doesn't have a support ult. So I really like this turret here because it's going to deny the Psylocke from coming on this angle, which is going to make it easier for him to possibly carry the fight with his Namor ult thereafter. Enemy uses a Luna ult, he invests his turret, and now soon after, I'm sure he's going to be using his Namor ult too to possibly find a pick on the Luna Snow right after ult, and then that's exactly what we have here. We have the Bucky and the Namor knowing that they have to invest ults because they do not have a support ult this fight, and that all in all just making sure that in these fights, okay, Psylocke has ult, I don't have support ult. I'm going to make sure that I am a Warden of my backline right now. They're never going to be able to have their opportunity to take their play. And then we are actually going to be able to combo our DPS ultimates together with the Namor to shut down their ultimate. So this is very good on the feet, just solid gameplay from Energy. Let's watch one more VOD from him to fully understand Namor's kit. So we've been talking a lot about turrets with Namor. Stuff like this. You know, there's a Hela in the backline. I'm going to make sure I put turrets down and make sure she dies. But what I want to show you guys is niche tech with the bubble that we didn't talk about. Specifically with the Magneto ult here, going right below the mag so that you can possibly, one, dodge the mag ult, but then also possibly block it to save your supports in an ult. It's something you can also do on Bucky as well that we didn't really talk about. It's niche, but in higher levels of play, I mean, this is something that Energy is constantly going to go for. And then for the rest of this fight, I mean, you're just going to be seeing him not go and do too much, not be this too aggressive force. He's just stopping the Psy because in time, Namor, if he just sits and does nothing, he probably gets more passive value than any other DPS in the game. So instead of trying to overextend and take these 1v1 duels with Psylocke, who's better, he's just going to make sure that they just take so long to get their value that eventually his turrets are just getting so much value for the rest of his team. So we're going to watch this fight, see how he goes with his ultimate here. He's not going to invest a turret if he doesn't need to, because it is just going to get broken by Hela right away, but he is going to give some shots to her as well. And now both teams are going back and forth. Psylocke's going back and forth. He's just making sure that he can pressure out that Loki so that maybe we can find something after the fact, so it's harder for that Loki to get a copy. Doesn't end up working out for him, but at the end of the day, again, he's just going right back to his roots. He's just going to see, hey, there's a Hela on the flank. I'm going to deal with that, and now I can just do whatever I want for the rest of this fight because now my DPS is going to be solid no matter what. I mean, holy moly, this guy is absolutely cracked. I cannot lie. All of these things, wow, great shots all around. If you guys want to learn more from Energy, again, we link all of his stuff in the description of almost every single DPS guide. So if you haven't watched him yet, please go ahead and do so. Everything with Namor that we talked about today, he is doing every single fight. And let's close out the video. And that closes out today's guide for Namor in Marvel Rivals. If you have any questions, make sure to send them in the comments down below, as well as asking me live right now here on YouTube or on Twitch at twitch.tv/PazSwagger. I stream every single day I upload, so be sure to check me out to learn more about everything I talked about today. Thank you guys all so much for watching, but until next time, I've got a peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.